Coronation Street has lined up a worrying new drama for Daniel Osborne as he struggles to try and move on from his relationship with Megan Walsh. Viewers know that Megan was finally charged last week, after Will Driscoll gave a statement to police confirming that the teacher had groomed him. Meanwhile, Megan's ex, Daniel, has been struggling as of late and has even been suspended from work after an outburst at school. The teacher then told his dad, Ken, that he was going to the Lake District for a while, but he actually stayed in his apartment, where Jody Ramsey caught him. After Jody broke in using the key she had stolen, Daniel invited her to stay, and the pair seemed to bond. In scenes to air on Tuesday, May 19th, Daniel and Jody go to the cafe where they both put their foot in it while talking to Roy about the renovations. Nina then shows Daniel an online account called Truth Teller, which has been posting that Daniel knew about Megan and Will. The account also accuses him of grooming Summer and mentions the allegations made by Max Turner in 2021. Jody tells Daniel to ignore the account, but Daniel says he can't, as it could affect him going back to work. Roy then offers some advice, telling Daniel that responding will only encourage more messages. Will Daniel be able to ignore it? Coronation Street's producer Kate Brooks recently shared that several characters are set to be affected as Megan finally gets her comeuppance. Speaking about Daniel, Brooks shared, with Daniel, he thought he'd met somebody who was on the same page as a teacher. Megan was apparently respectable and Daniel has been completely duped by her. It completely makes him unravel. Rob Mallard, who plays Daniel, is such a phenomenal actor. We'll see Daniel slowly start to lose it, because he's wondering who to trust. He's been bitten so badly by this relationship. As Daniel was the one who defended Megan at first as well, he feels like he's let Will down and Birdie down. We're really going to chart the impact she's had on him and his life, and his attitude to relationships going forward. The rain hammered against the windows of the flat as Daniel Osborne sat alone at the table, staring blankly at the cold cup of coffee in front of him. The silence around him felt louder than the arguments he'd been trying so hard to avoid lately. Ever since Bethany left Weatherfield for her new opportunity in London, Daniel had thrown himself into work and fatherhood, pretending everything was under control. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Birdie's toys were scattered across the living room floor, untouched since earlier that morning. Daniel rubbed his eyes, exhausted after another sleepless night. The pressure of juggling teaching, single parenting, and mounting bills had begun to crush him. Even worse, whispers were spreading around the street that Daniel had been struggling again, something he desperately wanted to hide. At the cafe, Daisy Midgley noticed immediately that something wasn't right. "You look awful," she bluntly told him as she placed a tea in front of him. "Thanks," Daniel muttered sarcastically. "I mean it. You've looked like you haven't slept in weeks." Daniel forced a smile, but Daisy wasn't buying it. She'd seen him like this before, withdrawn, distant, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. It reminded her too much of the dark period after Sinead's death. "You need help," she said quietly. "I'm fine. You always say that right before things fall apart." Her words hit harder than Daniel expected. He quickly stood, grabbed his coat, and stormed out of the cafe before anyone else could overhear. But Daisy's concern only deepened later that day when Birdie arrived late to nursery, wearing mismatched clothes and clearly upset. Staff members exchanged worried glances as Daniel rushed in apologetically, looking flustered and distracted. That evening, the situation took an even darker turn. While searching for Birdie's favorite toy, Daniel accidentally knocked over a pile of unopened letters hidden behind a bookshelf. Bills. Final warnings. Overdue notices. His heart pounded as he realized just how bad things had become. Then came the knock at the door. It was Adam Barlow. "My calls," Adam said cautiously. "What's going on?" Daniel tried to brush him off, but Adam spotted the letters immediately. "Oh, mate. It's nothing," Daniel snapped. "That doesn't look like nothing." Daniel finally cracked. Weeks of bottled-up anxiety came pouring out as he admitted he was drowning financially. Childcare costs had skyrocketed, work hours had been cut, and he'd secretly taken out a loan to stay afloat. "I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed," Daniel admitted shakily. "But now I can't keep up." Adam's expression turned serious when he noticed one particular letter sitting on top of the pile. A red warning notice from a debt recovery company. "How much do you owe?" Daniel hesitated. "Too much." The worrying discovery sent alarm bells ringing. Adam immediately urged Daniel to get professional help before things spiraled completely out of control. But Daniel, ashamed and overwhelmed, insisted he could still sort it himself. Unfortunately, Weatherfield had other plans. The next morning, Jenny Connor overheard two nursery mums gossiping about Daniel neglecting Bertie. Furious, Daisy confronted them, but the damage was already done. Rumors spread quickly around the street, and soon even Ken Barlow became concerned. When Ken visited the flat later that day, he was horrified by what he found. Dirty dishes covered the kitchen counters. Unwashed laundry overflowed from baskets. Daniel looked exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open. "Daniel," Ken said softly, devastated. "I'm managing." "No, son. You're not." For the first time, Daniel couldn't argue back. Ken gently encouraged him to sit down while Bertie played nearby. The older man's face filled with heartbreak as Daniel admitted he'd been suffering panic attacks in secret for weeks. "I feel like I'm failing him," Daniel whispered, looking at Bertie. Ken immediately reassured him. "You are not your worst moment." But the emotional conversation was interrupted by another sudden knock at the door. This time, it wasn't family. Two sharply dressed representatives stood outside, asking for Daniel by name. His face instantly drained of color. "We're here regarding missed repayments." Ken stared in shock as Daniel froze completely. The humiliating confrontation left Daniel shaken, especially when one of the men warned legal action could follow if the debt remained unpaid. After they left, Ken finally realized how serious the situation had become. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I didn't want everyone treating me like I'm broken." But the truth was impossible to hide now. Later that evening, Daisy visited the flat carrying groceries and a small toy for Bertie. Daniel tried to protest, embarrassed by everyone fussing over him, but Daisy refused to leave. "You don't get to push everyone away," she told him firmly. "Not this time." Daniel's eyes filled with tears as the emotional walls he'd built around himself finally collapsed. For weeks, he'd convinced himself asking for help meant weakness. But standing there with Daisy, Ken, and Bertie beside him, he slowly realized something important. He wasn't alone. As the episode closed, Daniel tucked Bertie into bed before sitting silently in the darkened living room. The unpaid bills still sat on the table. The problems hadn't disappeared overnight. But for the first time in weeks, there was a tiny glimmer of hope. Still, Coronation Street fans know peace in Weatherfield never lasts for long, and with Daniel's secrets now exposed, bigger consequences could be just around the corner. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Crown ST.